All right, so today we're diving into the legacy of David Lynch. He just recently passed away, and wow, the sources you sent over really paint him as more than just a filmmaker. Articles, tributes, the whole works. They all say he forever changed the landscape of movie making, not to mention his impact on TV as well.
Yeah, he really did leave his mark on both, didn't he? It's
Yeah.
like Lynch brought this unique blend of darkness and surrealism, the inexplicable, right into the mainstream. I bet most folks have seen some of his work without realizing it.
I feel like I'm one of those. So, I mean, you mentioned David Lynch, and certain images just pop into my head, but connecting the dots back to him, that's what this deep dive is for.
Yeah.
So, where do we even begin with a career this impactful?
Well, his first feature film, Eraserhead, is definitely a good starting point. Buckle up, though. It's a wild ride. Think bizarre imagery like a lady in the radiator and a deformed baby.
Okay, based on the descriptions I'm seeing here, unsettling feels like a massive understatement. Ooh. But, even with all that weirdness, the guy was obviously talented. It says here, Eraserhead caught the eye of some serious Hollywood players. Mel Brooks, of all people, was an early champion of Lynch.
That's right. Brooks, the comedy legend, saw something special in Lynch's vision. He actually helped Lynch land the director's chair for The Elephant Man. It's a more traditional film than Eraserhead, for sure, but you can still see Lynch's unique visual style shining through. And it even earned him his first Oscar nomination. Right from the start, you see this push and pull in his career, the experimental artist versus, the Hollywood player.
Fascinating. So he wasn't afraid to go to those dark, surreal places,
Yeah.
but he also had the chops to tell a powerful story within a more, I guess, classic format.
Exactly. And that duality continues throughout his career. Take Dune, for instance. Huge budget based on a super popular sci-fi book. And, well, it flopped. Hard.
Ouch, yeah. The sources don't sugarcoat it. It sounds like Dune was a brutal experience for Lynch.
Oh, it was. But it also shows how unwilling he was to compromise his vision, even when things were going wrong. And the funny thing is, Dune, despite bombing at the box office, has become a cult classic. People now appreciate its ambition, its unique, Lynchian flavor. Goes to show, sometimes it takes audiences a while to catch up to a visionary.
It makes you wonder how many other so-called flops out there are just waiting for the right moment, the right audience.
It's true. Tastes change, perspectives evolve. And thankfully for Lynch, he bounced back from Dune with two iconic films, Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart.
Now those are titles I recognize, even if I haven't seen them. Something about the names Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart just screams David Lynch.
They absolutely solidified his distinct style. Both films dive into, the underbelly of America, exploring themes of sexuality, violence, that darkness hiding beneath seemingly normal lives. That unsettling feeling we talked about earlier, that sense that something's just off, even in the most everyday settings.
Which brings us to Twin Peaks. This show, it practically reinvented television. Surrealism, mystery, dark themes. He brought it all into people's living rooms, week after week.
Groundbreaking stuff, for sure. A small town, the motor of Laura Palmer, an FBI agent who loved damn good coffee and cherry pie. But underneath all that quirky charm, you always get that feeling that something is very, very wrong.
Before this deep dive, I didn't realize how many things we take for granted in TV today. Complex storylines that unfold over time, cliffhangers, dream sequences. Lynch pioneered a lot of that in Twin Peaks.
Absolutely. It's like he created a new language for television, and, people are still speaking that language. Twin Peaks paved the way for so many other unconventional, complex shows. It proved that audiences were craving stories that didn't have all the answers, stories that dared to be ambiguous and, well, yeah, unsettling.
And it still has a huge following, even decades later. They even did a revival in 2017. Twin Peaks clearly tapped into something that still resonates with people today.
It's that feeling of unease, like something's hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Those anxieties are more relevant than ever, right? It's almost like Lynch had his finger on the pulse of, something fundamental about human nature.
Okay, so far we've got Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, Dune, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks. And from what I'm seeing here, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Where do we even go from here?
We haven't even touched on Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive yet. Those films, they really delve into the power of the subconscious, the way our dreams and fears shape reality. They're the kind of films that stay with you, the ones that get people talking, debating different interpretations for years and years.
And it's not just film and TV. The guy was a painter, a musician. He even did daily weather reports for a while there. It's like he had this endless well of creativity.
What's amazing is that you see the same vision across all those mediums. Whether he was painting, making music, or directing a film, there's always that distinct Lynchian touch.
Okay, so we've established that Lynch was this incredible artist, this visionary. But honestly, for someone who's new to his work, it can be a little intimidating. Where do you even start?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think it's important to remember that even though Lynch's work can be challenging, it's all about connecting with the viewer on an emotional level. It's not about shocking or confusing people. It's about making them feel something.
I'm starting to see that. Even when he's exploring these dark, surreal themes, there's something relatable about the core human experiences he's tapping into. We all have those dark corners of our minds, the dreams and nightmares that we don't fully understand.
Right. Lynch isn't afraid to explore the shadowy places. He makes us confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world. But at the same time, he reminds us that there's also beauty to be found in the darkness, in the strangeness.
Okay, so he's this amazing, kind of weird artist. But what does it all mean for us regular folks? How does his work actually impact our lives?
Well, one of the most important things Lynch does is make us question our assumptions about the world. He forces us to look beyond the surface of things, to acknowledge the darkness and strangeness that's often lurking underneath.
And in a world where we're just bombarded with information and distractions, being able to question things, to think critically, it's more important now than ever.
It really is. Lynch's work reminds us that things are rarely as simple as they seem. And that questioning, that sense of curiosity, it can be a powerful tool for understanding ourselves and the world around us.
So it's not just about the, weird visuals or the creepy characters. It's about engaging with the world on a deeper level, being open to the mystery and complexity we encounter every day.
Exactly. Lynch's work encourages us to embrace the unknown, to find beauty in the unexpected. It's about embracing the full spectrum of the human experience, the light and the shadow.
And maybe, just maybe, it's about finding a little bit of that Lynchian magic in our own lives.
One of the articles described Lynch as, and I love this, a singular, visionary dreamer who directed films that felt handmade. I think that really captures the essence of his work, don't you?
It does. It's so personal, so unique. It's like he poured his entire heart and soul into every single frame.
And that's what makes his films so powerful. They're not just entertainment, they're an invitation to step into another world, to see things through David Lynch's eyes.
Even though he's gone now, his work continues to inspire and challenge people all over the world. He's left behind a legacy that will definitely shape film and television for generations to come.
And his legacy goes way beyond the screen, too. Lynch's work has seeped into our culture. It's influenced music, fashion, even advertising.
He's become more than just a filmmaker. He's an icon, a symbol of creative freedom and artistic expression.
And that's something worth celebrating. In a world that often tries to put us in boxes, tells us how to think and what to feel, Lynch's work reminds us to embrace our individuality, to be true to our own strange and wonderful visions.
Okay, so we've talked about his early work, his groundbreaking TV shows, his more surreal later films, but we're just getting started. We haven't even touched on his music, his paintings, those daily weather reports.
And that's the beauty of David Lynch's work. It's a rabbit hole you can just keep going down, always discovering something new and unexpected.
Like that severed ear in Blue Velvet, leading you down a path you never could have imagined.
Exactly. And I think that's a fitting metaphor for Lynch's whole career. He invites us to follow him down those strange and winding paths, to embrace the mystery and beauty of the unknown.
So what are we waiting for? Let's keep diving.
Let's do it. Ready to go deeper down that rabbit hole.
Oh, absolutely. My brain's still buzzing from everything we've talked about so far. Lynch's work is like, I don't know, like an onion. Every layer you peel back, there's another one underneath, more questions. And oddly enough, it's making me crave French onion soup.
That's a very Lynchian way to put it. And it's what makes exploring his work so rewarding. He never wanted to just, spoon-feed answers to his audience. He wanted us to really engage, wrestle with those questions, and find our own meaning in all the, ambiguity.
Okay, I'm ready to wrestle. Before we went on, we were just starting to talk about Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive. Those films seem to be where Lynch really went full-on surreal, wouldn't you say?
He definitely pushed the boundaries there, like what we consider traditional storytelling.
Yeah.
Out the window. He's working with what we call dream logic in those films.
Whoa, hold on. You can't just drop dream logic and expect me or our listeners, for that matter, to just nod along.
Right, fair enough. So dream logic is basically how things unfold in dreams. Things jump around, they don't always make sense, but they still somehow make sense emotionally. Think about the last time you had a really vivid dream. It probably didn't make logical sense, but you felt things, right? That's what Lynch captures in these films.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection. So even though things get, well, pretty out there in Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, there's still a kind of internal logic to it all, this dreamlike flow.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that even though they can be tough to grasp on a first watch, both of these films are grounded in pretty universal themes: identity, desire, the dark underbelly of Hollywood. He's just exploring them through a more, I guess you could say, distorted, dreamlike lens.
I like that. So give me an example. How does Lynch use this dream logic to tackle those themes in, let's say, Mulholland Drive?
Okay, well, look at the contrasting realities he presents in the film. On one hand, you have the glamour of Hollywood, that whole world of fame and fortune, so seductive. But then, right beneath that surface, there's this seedy, dangerous undercurrent full of broken dreams and shattered illusions. Lynch uses dream logic to kind of blend those realities together, creating this nightmarish world where nothing is quite as it seems.
It's like he's saying that the line between our dreams and our reality is way thinner than we think it is.
Exactly. And that's something we can all relate to, right? I mean, we've all had moments where those lines blur, where our fears and desires, they kind of creep into our everyday lives.
Totally. Now, what about Lost Highway? What's the dream logic version of those themes look like in that film?
Lost Highway just throws you right into this like labyrinth. Shifting identities, distorted realities, the whole 9 yards. The main character is dealing with intense paranoia, guilt, and those emotions are reflected in the way the story is told, all fragmented and surreal. It's a film that really makes you question how we perceive things, if we can even trust our own memories.
Honestly, it sounds fascinating and kind of terrifying at the same time. Like, what if we can't even trust our own memories? That's a heavy thought. But I guess that's what makes Lynch's work so compelling, right? He tackles these big existential questions head on.
He's fearless, that's for sure. And I think that's a big reason why people are still so drawn to his films, even decades later. Those questions he grapples with, identity, desire, the nature of reality, those are timeless. They're questions we all deal with at some point.
So we've talked about how Lynch makes us think, challenges our assumptions. But what about the emotional side of things? These films aren't exactly lighthearted comedies, right?
No, definitely not. Lynch doesn't shy away from the darker sides of human nature. Violence, perversion, the stuff a lot of filmmakers would either sanitize or avoid altogether.
I can see how that would be pretty unsettling for some viewers. But do you think there's something cathartic about it too? Like, by confronting those darker impulses, maybe we can process them better, make sense of them.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah, I think there's definitely a cathartic element to Lynch's work. He's not condoning those dark urges, but he's acknowledging that they're there, and that in itself can be really powerful.
It's like he's saying, look, this darkness is a part of who we are. Let's stop pretending it doesn't exist. Let's face it.
Exactly. And by facing it, even if it's uncomfortable, we can start to process it, understand it. He's not giving us easy answers, but he is creating a space for us to grapple with those difficult emotions.
And that's huge. I mean, we live in a world that tells us to shove down those negative emotions, put on a happy face. Lynch's work is like permission to feel the whole spectrum of human experience.
Absolutely. He gives us permission to explore the shadows, to sit with the discomfort, and maybe even find some beauty in the unexpected.
One of the articles said, his films have already stood the test of time, and they always will. That really struck me. I think it speaks to the lasting power of Lynch's work. It's not just about shock value or being weird for the sake of being weird. There's this depth and complexity to it all that makes people want to revisit it again and again.
And that depth, I think, comes from Lynch's own personal journey. He clearly spent a lot of time exploring his own inner world, facing his own demons, and he's willing to share that journey with us through his art.
So even if we don't always understand what's happening in his films, on a purely logical level, we can still feel the honesty of it, the realness. It's like getting a glimpse into the mind of a true artist, someone who's not afraid to be vulnerable.
And that vulnerability, it's so powerful. It's what lets us connect with him on a human level, even when he's taking us to some pretty weird and unsettling places.
So we've talked a lot about the dark side of Lynch's work, but there's another side too, isn't there? A real beauty, an ethereal quality that's hard to describe.
Absolutely. I think a lot of that comes from the way he uses imagery and sound. He's a master of creating atmosphere, building tension, using music and sound design to really amplify the emotions of a scene.
Yeah, it's like he creates a whole sensory experience, It's
Yeah.
not just watching a movie, you feel it in your gut.
It's visceral. Remember that scene in Mulholland Drive at Club Silencio? The way the music builds, the camera lingering on Naomi Watts' face as she's completely captivated. It's haunting, but beautiful at the same time.
Oh, man. Yeah, chills. Literally chills.
It's a perfect example of how Lynch can use these really simple elements to evoke such a powerful emotional response. He's not afraid to just let a moment sit there to let the audience really experience the discomfort, the beauty, the strangeness, whatever it may be.
And there's often a sense of humor in his work, too, right? It's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, definitely. Lynch has this wicked sense of humor that kind of peeks out from all the darkness. It's absurdist, often rooted in the little details of everyday life.
Like that scene in Twin Peaks where Agent Cooper is just obsessed with the cherry pie at the Double R Diner. It's such a small thing, but it adds this element of whimsy.
Mhm.
It reminds us that even with all the darkness and mystery, there's still room for those simple pleasures.
Right. And that contrast, the mundane mixed with the surreal, that's something Lynch does so well. He can make you laugh 1 minute and then scare the living daylights out of you the next.
And that's what keeps you hooked. You
Oh,
never know what's coming next, which makes his film so engaging, so unpredictable.
it's like a roller coaster for your mind. And that's what makes Lynch such a unique and enduring artist. He takes risks, he pushes boundaries, he challenges everything we think we know about cinema.
And in doing so, he's created a body of work that's both challenging and so rewarding. It's not always easy to watch, but it always gets you thinking, and it definitely sticks with you.
If you're looking for a filmmaker who will make you think, make you feel, maybe even question your sanity just a little bit, then David Lynch is someone you absolutely need to check out.
Couldn't agree more. We've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one aspect of Lynch's work we haven't really talked about yet. We talked about Lynch's films, his TV work, even his paintings and music, but there's this other side to him that's just as fascinating. It's almost like an extension of his art.
It is, yeah. It's like the guy himself was a walking, talking piece of art.
Exactly. The man, the myth, the legend David Lynch. He had this aura about him, this mystique. The sources mention he was really into transcendental meditation and had a really strict daily routine, always talking about, like, finding peace within the chaos.
It wasn't just an act either. Lynch really believed that, tapping into a deeper level of consciousness, that's where true creativity came from. Finding that inner stillness, that's where the inspiration flows.
So you're saying instead of trying to decode every single symbol in his films, maybe we should focus on how they make us feel overall, the mood, the way they make us question what's real and what isn't.
I think that's the key to understanding Lynch, yeah. His films aren't puzzles to be solved, they're experiences to be felt. They kind of bypass our logical minds and speak to something much deeper, something more universal.
Okay, so embrace the weirdness, the ambiguity, even the uncomfortable stuff. Because maybe in that space, we could discover a whole new way of seeing the world.
Exactly. Lynch was all about making us see things differently, reminding us that sometimes the most profound truths are hidden right there beneath the surface.
Man, we could all use a little more Lynch in our lives, couldn't we? But seriously, this deep dive has been incredible. We've explored his early work, his groundbreaking TV, his surreal masterpieces, and I still feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
That's the beauty of Lynch's legacy. He left us with this amazing body of work that people will be discovering and debating for years to come. And even though he's gone now, his films will keep pushing the boundaries of what art can be.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? This guy who built his whole career on exploring the dark, the unsettling, the strange. Ultimately, he left behind a message of hope. Hope that we can find beauty in the unexpected, meaning in the everyday.
He showed us that it's okay to embrace what's strange, to question what we think we know, to never stop exploring our own imaginations.
So the next time you come across something that doesn't make sense, something that challenges how you see the world, remember David Lynch.
Remember the guy who taught us to see things differently?
And who showed us that sometimes the most important truths are the ones we have to dig for, the ones hiding just out of sight. Well, that's it for our deep dive into the world of David Lynch.
I hope you enjoyed the journey.
We certainly did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and always be on the lookout for the unexpected.
Because you never know what strange and wonderful things you might discover.